Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast today is part of the Cytometry Cyclone. This audio podcast is part of a Rakas and Bombard episode, and this audio podcast is part of a Storm Robotics production. Looking at and continuing the theme in around human renal transplantation or kidney transplantation and healthcare practices. So, clinical specialists, including clinical scientists, clinical immunobiologists, have been searching for sort of the full explanation of tolerance of in-around transplant tolerance for several decades, if not more, to help improve the acceptance of transplanted for to improve the acceptance of solid transplanted organs. Tolerance prevents tolerance precludes at the same time the immune system the immune system from attacking self, and self-tolerance can be partly explained by the destruction of self tissues by T cells, that react to self antigens. But some self-reactive T cells slip through the destruction process, killing tissue in context of immunobiology. So convinced an anti-specific antigen specific and mechanism of tolerance exists, laboratory investigations have developed for and then found a different set of T cells. These suppressor T cells can induce tolerance after recognizing the antigens on the surface of another type of immune cell, called and referred to as dendritic cells, which process and present antigens to T cells, including T suppressor cells, T helper cells, and T killer cells. After sort of the recognition somehow after the recognition in context of this, T suppressor cells can sort of rob the dendritic cells ability to activate T helper and T killer cells to respond to the same antigen. And without active T helper and T killer cells, the immune response to the antigen is placed on hold. And looking at the outcome in context of some investigations surrounding cardiac transplanted recipients. Investigations had identified that two proteins play an important role in vivo in organ transplant. In organ transplantation, a patient's immune system initially reacts against dendritic cells that come from the donated organ. And if these dendritic cells could be suppressed or can be suppressed, the patient may have a lower probable risk of of acute allograft rejection. And investigations have informed that recipients who had T suppressor cells, for example, are capable of suppressing the donor dendritic cells, experience where suppressing the donors dendritic cells, and where the investigations informed that no rejection episodes had been experienced. Stresses at the time, and stresses and sort of physical activity aspects have also been to show transiently to enhance the immune responses, and these stress effects on immunity seem to be mediated through endocrine factors, since hormones, neurotransmitters, and neuropeptides can also interact with cellular components of the immune system, and therefore it is reasonable to appreciate that receptor pain, for example, may also prime a transplant acceptance and or tolerance. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast is part of the Cytometry Cyclone. This audio podcast is part of a Rakas Bombard episode, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Lobostics production.